Welcome back to the Get Set podcast, an old girls entertainment production where neoteric meets nostalgia. We are a podcast demystifying the idea of an overnight success while highlighting the array of diverse jobs within the industry, with a focus on women in the TV and film space. Today on the podcast, we have your co-host here, myself, Jessica Payne, and
Monique Schwaneman. And today on the pod, we have KATRINA MEDOFF. KATRINA is the co-founder and co-executive director of Moonshot Initiative, a nonprofit that works towards gender equity in the film and television industry. She has advanced the career of thousands of creatives by spearheading major programs through Moonshot, including the Moonshot Film Challenge, formerly known as the Women's Weekend Film Challenge, through which Moonshot has produced 36 short films, giving over 900 women and gender-expansive filmmakers an on-set networking opportunity.
And the Moonshot Pilot and Feature Accelerators, which help emerging writers get their foot in the door through pitch meetings with a few major companies. You may know of them as Netflix, HBO, Hulu, Showtime, Starz, just the basics.
Just a few little ones.
Yeah. And they also host a virtual education series, including courses like Write a Pilot in 30 Days, How to Pitch Your Project, as well as virtual workshops in which she interviews major Hollywood names. And perhaps some of our personal favorites are their networking events hosted in New York City, Los Angeles, and Atlanta, which, by the way, we'll get into the story a little bit later, but Mo and I got connected through Moonshot. So we are forever grateful, for sure. We'll get into the story, the details of the story, but yeah, we love this organization for sure.
And not only are we going to hear from KATRINA about her career, but she's also going to give our listeners the scoop about this accelerator program, Moonshot's Initiative's Pilot Accelerator. In this highly competitive virtual accelerator program for TV writers, 6 to 8 fellows will receive 3 weeks of industry training before having the opportunity to pitch to major studios, production companies, representatives, and producers. And applications are now open through May 27th, so buckle up. We have got quite the episode for you today. Welcome to the pod, KATRINA.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm obsessed with this idea that you met at one of the Moonshot mixers. I love that.
Yeah. Well, So we originally met in a virtual back in 2020. I met Monique's friend, Charlotte, and she was an actor and I was a director coming straight out of college. And I said, hey, everything's shut down. Let's do a virtual workshop. You bring your actor friends. I'll bring my director friends. Let's get together. And that's how we all got connected. It was following up after
one of your networking events.
Yes, your networking events. Because we always say you guys have the quality people come into the events who are ready to mingle and mix and have a good time and work together.
And everyone's so nice who comes to these events. And everyone's so open to meeting people. I feel like that's not what you see at every networking event. I feel like we just got really, really lucky with our community.
I know. Yeah. That's something that we've constantly talked about with you all is and we've had Tracy Hayes on the show as well. And we talked with her. It's something about what you all are doing is creating such a lovely, safe, wonderful space for people. So we just, thank you so much for making it happen, because somehow it's magic and we love it. We're here for it.
Yeah, and this was our second or third year in LA being at your Galentine's Day event.
Yes.
It's it is a stakeholder in our calendars or annually that we will be there.
Yeah, we always now tag team it and we always go to your mixers.
I love that. And the Galentine's is so much fun. I don't know what it is about it, but that's always one of the most fun mixers we do.
Everyone comes in with the best outfits too. It's we know the assignment and everyone comes in ready.
They do. Yeah. It is for sure. And you don't have to be themed, but people have fun with it.
Yeah. So let's get into your story, if you don't mind, in your own words, telling us who you are and where you call home.
Hold up. Jess and I are crowdfunding for our first feature.
That's right. Our 1970s period piece about how my mom was denied a line of credit simply for being a woman.
And then writing a news-breaking article about it in her local paper before the Equal Credit Opportunity Act passes is coming to be.
Yep. And you can visit the link in our show notes or in our Instagram bio of Older Girls Entertainment to see how you can share and get involved and be a part of our Seed and Spark campaign.
So please go do that. And now we're back to our normally scheduled programming.
That's right. It's a good one.
So I'm KATRINA, as you said. I live in New York City. I'm in Astoria. I've been here for, oh my gosh, 13 years. So this, neighborhood in New York really is like such a great home base for me. And there's so many other artists and filmmakers and everything here, which has been really amazing.
And you wrote about Astoria for a while, right? Am I correct? When I was
Yeah, I used to be the editor of a magazine called Borough that was about Astoria, LIC, and Sunnyside. So it was like the whole Western Queens area. And I have to say, I was like super plugged into my neighborhood at that point, which was like really fun because I just always knew what was opening and what was happening. So yeah, that was fun.
You're a good connect for the people who want to move to New York. That would be, great to hit you up for advice. Let's get started also with what was your first job within the industry? How did you get this bug to work in the entertainment industry at all?
So I studied in college theater and creative writing and French, actually. I didn't study film at all. And I moved to New York with the intention of really acting, primarily in theater and writing. And so, I spent a few years really auditioning, and I would find myself spending months or weeks kind of in a teeny tiny show that like nobody's heard of. I remember spending like a couple months doing this show that we all, as the actors, we were like, are we on a prank show? Like, are we being pranked right now? Because it was so ridiculous. We shared like a backstage area with this other show, which was the 50 Shades musical parody. And so the whole lobby was like filled with these Long Island women who just wanted to take like photos with their actors. And our show was like wild. I remember that choreographer, because I was supposed to be the dance captain, she was like, well, we won't announce it yet. We just want to make sure people respect you first. Otherwise, we're going to choose someone older or a man. And I was like, okay, this is still happening and being said like very much out loud. But anyway, At the same time as I was doing shows like that, I was starting to be on my first film sets. And I would spend just a couple days on a film set and I would meet so many people and I would get to be originating a role and I would walk away with this whole new community. And I was like, okay, this is really amazing. And as I was on these film sets, I did realize that I was often the only, woman on set, maybe besides the makeup artist, but like it was mostly male dominated. And that was kind of the impetus for Moonshot because I was like, okay, I'm going to all these networking events where there's all these women and gender expansive folks, but like, why are these amazing, talented people not getting hired on set? And so when we started Moonshot, then called Women's Weekend Film Challenge, it was all about like, okay, how do we get these people on set? Because every time you're on set, like that's how you build your network. And if you only know male cinematographers, the next time you were to ask me, do you have any recommendations for a cinematographer? That's the only name I'd be able to give you. Yeah. So we wanted to create a network where people would be able to know women and gender expansive folks in every role of production to hire and refer and collaborate with while building up their portfolios with high quality projects because we were able to provide the equipment and production insurance and all that.
Which is incredible. So can you just walk us through? I mean, being a founder, Jessica and I have found this out recently, is a massive, massive undertaking. Not to mention like now all the resources that you offer and the jobs really that you create for people. The passion's there, the need was there. You noticed what your community needed. How did you even make that happen?
I guess at that point, I kind of thought it would be easy. I was like, I just need to get these people on set together, right? And I never set out to found a nonprofit. I think if I had been sitting there the day that I had this idea and I thought that like, okay, this is going to be my full-time job. I'm going to be working on it, 8 years in, I'm going to be spending all my time on that. Like I never would have started it and I'm so glad I did. But like at the time, I was so focused on just like my own acting and writing. And I was seeing this as just like, okay, like these people need to get on set together. This is not that hard. Like, let's just make it happen. And of course, it kind of is that hard, right? Like now it is my full-time job. But it was just this idea that like, we need to make a change. And it's so funny because I just found this old journal that I was writing in over a decade ago. And I was writing out some career goals. And one of the goals I put was to make a change for women in the industry. And I actually didn't even realize that was something on my mind back then. Like I didn't realize that was something that I was thinking about that long ago. So it is cool to see how this career came about that I just didn't really anticipate.
Yeah, I got chills.
Yeah.
You definitely check that off your list.
Yeah.
Accomplished. And seriously, was it a major decision to have your organization be in multiple cities? Because you're in LA and in New York, obviously, where you are, and Atlanta now too. So you're hitting these three major networks, and that must be, incredibly hard, I would imagine.
We started in New York and in like 2017, 2018, and I believe we had like 3 or 4 film challenges before we went to LA for our first film challenge. We got so incredibly lucky. I cannot even believe it, because our first film challenge in LA was February 2020. We held a screening in ArcLight Theater on, I want to say March 4th or 5th, 2020, which, now if I look back, I'm like, oh my God, that could have been a super spreader, but like, luckily it wasn't. It was very lucky. We had this huge event. It took us over a year to plan that LA launch of our film challenge. And as a grassroots nonprofit, it would have been absolutely devastating if we hadn't been able to do that. But we got very lucky with our timing, flew back to New York, the world shut down. And then that's when we started doing our virtual workshops. And that's when we started getting more of like a global audience for everything that we were doing. And out of that grew some of our other programming. Like, that was where we realized the events that people were the most excited to come to were about like how to get in a writer's room and how to pitch your project, how to be a showrunner. And so that's why we created the Moonshot Pilot Accelerator, which is the program you mentioned that our applications are currently open for. And we were like, okay, there are so many talented writers. They're not getting in these rooms. They're not able to pitch. They're not able to translate that into actual work. So that was the impetus for that. And then the courses you mentioned came out of, okay, now we've read like 2,000 scripts. We've sat in on hundreds of meetings with these major companies. Like, how do we bring that knowledge to a larger group of people?
How did that first ask for you go? Because I mean, you've collaborated with major entertainment companies at this point. Was it a difficult ask in the beginning, getting them on board? Is there any advice that you have about that? Or was, because you have a nonprofit status and with your experience in the industry, did that help?
Well, in terms of our virtual series, we interviewed a lot of huge names. And I think we were, just out of the fact that it was COVID and everyone was stuck at home, we were able to cold email so many huge name filmmakers who were very happy to use that time to speak with our audience. And I think once we got a few big names, it snowballed from there. And then in terms of our accelerator, the companies hearing pitches, I met one of our now board members, Janet Grant-Borba from HBO. I met her at an event. And so, she got involved. And because we were able to get HBO on board to hear pitches, I think that really made a lot of other companies that weren't already familiar with us a lot more comfortable to say yes, because, some other company that they trusted had already kind of agreed to that. And I would say the same thing about some of the sponsors that we've had, like being able to see that sponsors, that they know those names and they trust those brand names, that really helped.
I feel like that's quintessential movie industry. Like, they're like, if you can get one like bigger name on your resume or one bigger name talking to you, all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, yeah, then you must be fine. But you need someone to be brave and like take a risk on you.
And then, so how did you build your board and how did you build your team?
Well, my co-founder, Tracy Sayer, so I know it's confusing because you talked with our board president, Tracy Hayes. So we have 2 Tracys in the mix. So my co-founder, Tracy, was very savvy about building our board early on, even before we were an official nonprofit. She wanted us to build an advisory board. And that was really essential as we transitioned to a nonprofit, because we already had some of those folks in place. And from there, we've just been trying to build like a diversity of, abilities and opinions and backgrounds, so that, you always want on a board someone who's has a more of a financial background, a lawyer background, someone who's an actual filmmaker, someone who, the list goes on and on. So we're just trying to get a wide group of opinions so that we can really, make the best choices we can for our community.
Yeah, we cannot wait for our financial person. We cannot wait to meet them. They are out there in the wings waiting for us, and we cannot wait for you because
they're listening to this podcast right now and they're ready.
Yeah. Jessica and I hate that, and we cannot wait to offload this responsibility onto you.
Are you guys a nonprofit?
No, not a nonprofit. Just like we need a CFO, and we cannot wait to have a CFO.
Yeah,
totally.
The business side is the hardest side for us. We're like, what? Like none of it comes natural. On that
I was so lucky that my co-founder Tracy, she's like not afraid of forms. Like I'll look at a form and be like, it says name, like what do I put? You know? And she's not afraid to fill out the forms or do the taxes or do the paperwork that made us a nonprofit.
So I'm the KATRINA and Mo, you're the Tracy for.
Yeah, I do the forms. I don't like it, but I do the forms. Okay, so you do have so much experience as an actor, a writer, and a producer. How did all of that translate to making you really understand? Like, you need to get people on set, but you also understand this world and you understand what they've been through. So how has that translated for you as leading this massive nonprofit in the industry space?
For us, it was really helpful to just make the programs that we wanted for ourselves. So the Moonshot Film Challenge grew out of like, okay, as an actor, writer, producer, like what kind of program would I want to exist? And I knew exactly what I wanted to exist out there. And the same thing with our Pilot Accelerator. I'm like, okay, I mean, I would want to get meetings, one-on-one pitch meetings with all these companies, and I would want prep time. So that's how we decided to have a speech coach, a showrunner, and a development exec all give notes on their pitches before they pitch to the big companies, and a mock writer's room, and time to ask questions to agents, managers, entertainment lawyers. Because I was like, okay, like what would I need to feel comfortable in these major rooms pitching? So yeah, I think it just came out of what we wanted and needed, which translated really well because that's what our audience wants and needs too.
Yeah, that's massive. A speech coach, I wouldn't even like.
I know you thought about everything that people would never think of.
It makes sense, but I feel like that's not the most obvious thing when talking about how to pitch. I feel like it's a lot of times it's very much like, you know, the basics of what you need in the document and what you need to say, but not necessarily how you need to say it, which is really one of the most important things, especially when you're properly trying to sell something or get someone to buy your idea. So that's super smart.
We give the fellows a lot of materials on what to include in their pitch so that they have a pitch ready as they come into the actual intensive program. And then we found that each of the different people who give feedback, you know, the speech coach, the showrunner, the development exec, they resonate with different fellows. So there are some fellows that, like, the speech coach unlocks everything because they're realizing how the way that they're presenting or their voice or what have you, like what's kind of being blocked for them, that they can open up and just speak and be natural and be themselves and really shine in the meeting. And then some people really resonate with, you know, the showrunner has sold shows before. So that's kind of that perspective. And the development exec is able to like give them the perspective of the people that they're actually going to be pitching to. So it's interesting because like people always have these different light bulb moments and they happen in different workshops for different people.
So cool.
Before we get more into the Pilot Accelerator program, you also have a Feature Accelerator program, not open for applications at the moment, but you've done it before. Can you tell us a little bit about that one?
Yeah, that one is super similar, except for that we have some different workshops in there. We have a workshop on pitching IP because a lot of these writers are going to have the opportunity to, you know, to pitch on these open writing assignments and stuff like that. And we want them to be prepared to do that because maybe they meet a company when they're pitching and that company really likes them. And then they have these opportunities to get considered for existing IP jobs that they have. So we want them to be prepared for that. With the Feature Accelerator, we know that it's just kind of a different ball game. There's a lot more of an opportunity for that to go kind of directly into someone wanting to come on board for the project because it's not quite as big of an ask as someone taking on a show for multiple seasons. It's like someone could decide that they want to invest in that. So yeah, that's been really fun. And like, it's been cool to see both sides of it.
With like television, it is more collaborative. Like when you're actually sitting there making, like you have writers' rooms, right? For features, there's not necessarily a writer's room, you know, if you sell it and then it gets hand off to someone else, or the director takes it. But like the writer television, like that's where they shine. You know, it's the showrunner that's running the show versus a director coming in. You know, when we think of features, a lot of times, most times, I feel like it's the authorship of the director that comes in and kind of takes over. And so if that writer is not a writer director and purely a writer, then eventually that really does get handed off somewhere. So it makes sense.
Exactly. I think that with both of them, we're really looking for people who are not only strong writers, but strong at pitching. And we work with them on the pitching, but people who have, you know, a certain comfort level. But with TV, that's extra important, because if you get into a writer's room, you're going to be pitching in a room constantly. Like, you have to always be so comfortable sharing your ideas. With a writer of a feature, you could, as you said, you could sell the script and then not really, you know, be part of the project going forward, and you can kind of sit on your own and write. So we have found, like, you know, obviously there's a ton of overlap with people having both pilots and features, but, you know, that kind of like desire to be in this collaborative environment and be sharing ideas like that is definitely like something you see all the time in the TV writers.
What is your biggest piece of advice for someone applying to your Pilot Accelerator program that's open right now?
First of all, we're just excited to see all the projects that come in, because there is such a huge amount of talent out there and like a huge variety of ideas. It's really amazing to see the projects that people are working on. And I think what we're most impressed by is when people are bringing something in that's really personal. Like, it doesn't have to be their own, you know, biographical life story that they're telling, but you can tell when people have the specificity to it, or like the, you know, the emotional connection to their project. So that's always exciting. We always, you know, tell people to feel like your script is ready when you're submitting it, because that's the one that we're going to read. Like, we get right to assessing scripts as they come in. So definitely, you know, submit it when you feel like it's actually ready to be submitted. And if you do make it onto the part of the process where you're going to be submitting a 2-minute pitch video, like, we really want to hear from you. We want you to be talking to the camera like you're on Zoom, because there are no cuts. There are no, you know, you can't speed up a Zoom. You can't, you know, put in all these other, you know, images and this and that. Like, you're talking. That's like what your pitch is you talking to these execs. We just really want to get to know the writers.
Is that live or is that recorded? Would they send that 2-minute pitch video once they get to that level?
That one is recorded. They send us 2-minute pitch videos. And then later on, after the semifinalist scripts are read by 2 industry judges, that's like showrunners and EPs, high-level TV writers, then we end up doing live interviews with the finalists. So that's 5-minute pitches that they're pitching to us live. And we always tell them, like, feel free. You will, of course, repeat the stuff that you put in your 2-minute pitch video. Like, it's not, you know, of course you're going to repeat that stuff. We want to treat this like you are pitching this to someone who's never heard you before. And then from there, the fellows bring into the program a 10-minute pitch. So they always tell us that, like, going from 2 minutes to 5 minutes to 10 minutes, they feel like it's this natural build and it's not this like crazy writing a pitch from scratch when they get accepted into our program.
And let's talk a little bit about the application process. You have, what's the program that you guys are using this year? Because now we don't have Coverfly anymore, right? So
Scribe, right?
Scribe.
Yes, it's on Scribe, which I believe was built by folks who worked at Coverfly.
Okay, cool. Oh, good. Good to know.
So it should be pretty similar for you on the writer end to submit. And, you know, you'll find that on our website, moonshotinitiative.org/pilot-accelerator. And you're going to be submitting your full pilot script, so a half-hour or hour-long format, and answering some questions about, like, why is now the time to tell your project, and why are you the one to tell it? You're going to share how this increases the representation of women and gender-expansive folks on screen. Questions like that. They're really short. And you're going to be sharing how you see your project going for the rest of season 1 and onto future seasons very, very, very briefly. But we like getting a sense of where the project is going because, of course, the pilot is just the very short intro to a long series, hopefully, a longer story that you're telling on screen. And yeah, it's really interesting. We always really get to see the trends of what's in the zeitgeist every year when we get all these hundreds and hundreds of submissions. So I'm really curious what it's going to be this year.
And then you select 6 to 8, which is, yeah, these are going to be like high level scripts. Do you ever accept writer duos, or is it, you generally like one writer or a writer producer duo who want to pitch it together? What are your thoughts on that?
We do accept writer duos. We haven't happened to have any writer duos accepted as fellows so far, but they have gotten to, the finalist stage. And these are writers who like co-authored the pilot and are pitching it together. We don't have any producers come on board for that because it is just a program essentially for the writers. The kind of outcome of the program is really about they get these pitch meetings and then they get to follow up with these execs that they meet. They usually get a bunch of general meetings after the fact. So the execs want to keep getting to know them. And we actually, I can't like announce the details yet, but we had a fellow sell a project due to participating in the program. And she was able to hire another alum from another year into their mini writer's room.
Oh my gosh.
So it was really amazing to see that happen, even like the cherry on top of the whole thing, because that's like creating this other job. That was this fellow who got hired into the writer's room. That was her first paid writing job. So, now she has a mini room under her belt. And the fellow who sold a project, it was not the project that she brought into the program. It was, she pitched the project she brought into the program to this company, and they kept bringing her back for more meetings because they were so impressed with her work. And then she sold an audio show to this company. And, it's a company that makes shows that everyone's heard of. And, it's really cool because this is kind of exactly what we're telling people. It's not just about like, the magic of selling it in the room during pitch week. I mean, that would be so hard to happen, even if you've been a showrunner before. Like, even if you were really, really seasoned in the industry, to sell something in the room would be wild. And what you're really doing is creating longer term relationships. So you're creating these relationships where you can keep coming back and pitching more and more projects to these people, understanding what they're interested in, like what are their tastes, what is the company looking for, and then hoping that can turn into some other opportunities down the line. This is actually a couple of years after she was a fellow. So you never know what can develop from it.
Yeah, I have a friend who works in development, and she staffed a few writers' rooms. And she's like, I met this writer 3 years ago, and they've just been on my radar, and I couldn't wait to bring her in and staff her on a room. And this happened to be the project. So it totally does happen like that. Like, you are establishing your network. I mean, that's incredible that you already have a success story from the relationships.
And it also goes to show, like, even if you're the one not necessarily getting the script sold or whatever, the people that you're working with around you, if you're networking with them as well, and they could potentially be the one to get, their idea picked up, and hopefully they'll bring you in their writer's room. Yeah,
completely. Yeah, Monique, like you were saying, these pitch week meetings, they're like a first date. That's what everyone advises the fellows who comes in and speaks to them. Like, you're just trying to see, like, do we vibe? So you can take a little bit of the pressure off of, like, do they love this specific project? Like, of course you want them to love this specific project.
Right. Yeah.
But you really, even more than that, want to create a relationship between them and you that can keep going through the years. This person might change companies and still have you on their radar. Like you said, we have people on our radar who have been semifinalists and finalists and stuff in years past that we are really hoping are going to submit again because we really liked their work, and their work is just on our radar. Their project might not have been right for it like last year or the year before, but people do remember writers that they're impressed with. Jessica, what you're saying about the other writers in the room, we always tell our fellows that it's about creating a community of their peers, because those are the people that like you said, could hire you into a writer's room one day. Those are the people who are, we've already had one fellow refer another fellow to her agent, and that person got representation because of that referral. We've also had a fellow who got representation from Pitch Week. But if you don't get representation from Pitch Week, you also have that opportunity where you're in this 3-week intensive with 7 other writers who are now very, very familiar with you and your work, who are able to advocate for you. We've had 2 fellows write another pilot together. We've had one fellow was just saying that she referred another to an exec because she knew that the exec was looking for film scripts, like the one that she was, like the one that this other fellow had. So they're constantly referring each other. I was just in an alum meetup. We do these Zoom meetups every couple months with all of our accelerator alums. And one of them was saying, okay, it's really cool. It's a really great community. Incredible. And yeah, the one fellow was like, okay, I know this exec who's looking for XYZ. So if any of you have that, I can make the email intro. So these relationships are even more key than, the relationships that you make in the pitches potentially.
Yeah, those people end up being not just your network, but their network becomes your network, which is huge.
And we can't overstate enough the amount of quality and just good-hearted and talented and wonderful people that you bring into your orbit. Because we've already felt this at your mixer level. We're both members of Moonshot Initiative too. So at the member level, we already feel that sense of community, feel so welcome, and feel that the people who show out want to be there and want to support this community and other women and bring people up with them.
Again, if we already tear up here.
No, really, yeah. We say it after, because networking is not always. Most of the time is not people's favorite thing. So Jessica and I go in and we're walking up, we're like, okay, it's a networking event. We're like, wait, no, this is Moonshot. We're going to meet some fucking awesome women today. And we come out, we get real contact information. Of course you exchange social media, but also people are like, here's my direct email. Here's my phone number. We've gotten coffee with so many people. We've had people on the podcast. It's, we've sent our pitch deck to them and they've given us advice. We sent Leslie Powers our pitch deck and she gave us advice on our feature pitch deck, and it's so helpful that people are just willing to help.
Yeah, I also
That's
think
amazing.
It shows as well because the same people keep coming back. So we now know that when we enter that room for a mixer or whatever, we'll know at least if nothing else from something that we've continued our networking afterwards with them, but we know them from the last time.
Yeah, even before starting Moonshot, I was a member of NYWIFT, New York Women in Film and Television, and I would just go to their monthly, member mixers that they had back then. And I remember that I got, back when I was an actor, I got an acting job on a feature film because of this writer producer that I had met, and I just met over and over and over every month or every couple months I would see her. And I think, to really create a community, you do need to keep showing up in the same places so that people have familiarity with you. And you can go beyond just here's my name, here's what I do, here's my business card, and really become friends with people and make long-lasting relationships. And
I think you nailed the term there, is that it is beyond just a networking place or an organization. You have built a community. So yeah, we're really thankful for it because it's kick-ass. So
amazing.
When writers feel like they're ready to apply for your program, your Pilot Accelerator program, is there anything in addition to that pilot they're submitting that would be ideal for them to have? Because I'm not a writer, Jessica is, and I know Jessica has a pilot for this genre, a feature film, another genre project that she's working on.
Calm down.
What would you do? And then, I just tell her if she has an idea, I'm like, okay, so go write it today. But should they have, you said, they could, abandon that idea. The 3 weeks is, a decent, it's a short amount of time, but it's also a decent amount of time. Should they have other ideas in their pocket just in case? Should they have other things to bring up for the pitch meeting if they get into the program? Is there any advice you have on that?
Well, there's definitely no abandoning of the idea in the midst because you're accepted with this specific project. So that's the project that you're pitching. But we always want people to have other projects in their back pocket that at least they're like noodling on, right? Because every single meeting, they're going to be asking you, like, what else are you working on? And you want to be able to say something. You absolutely can apply if you just have one pilot, and you should apply, but like to at least have an idea of the projects that you're thinking about. We were once told by a development exec that you need to be able to answer the question of who you are as a writer. So it could be something like, I write I write genre projects where you really explore relationships between sisters or something like that, which could mean that you're writing pilots, you could be writing features, you could be writing plays, you could be writing a whole host of things. They could span a bunch of genres, but you're talking about the themes that you really like as a writer and like what is really inspiring to you. So if you go in knowing who you are as a writer and you're able to articulate that, that really helps them place you. When they have, like Monique was saying, a development exec could be staffing a room and they might think, okay, I have this horror project and, there's twin sisters are the main characters. And they might think back, oh, right, this person was like really, into, family dynamics, especially sisters and genre. Like, let me call them in for a meeting, because just kind of giving them an idea of who you are without pigeonholing it so much, I think is really helpful. We also have an option for you to submit a pitch deck with your application, but we would say only do that if you already have a pitch deck and you're really happy with it. Because it can definitely help you if we're like, wow, this person has a great sense of the imagery and the vibe of the project. But it can also hurt you if you kind of throw something together and you put comps in there and we're like, wait, these comps make no sense to us for the script that we just read, or they actually don't really have a sense of where it's going for the next few seasons. So I think focus on the script first and foremost, because that's what we're judging it off of. And if you do, again, happen to already have a pitch deck for it, you're welcome to share it. But we don't want people throwing something together that's not going to really show their talents off correctly. And I also think it's really helpful when you go into meetings to be able to talk about projects that, even if you haven't written an entire script for yet, something that you're at least noodling on, because you never know what's going to really excite somebody that you're talking to. And it's helpful to show more data points on who you are as a writer, because if you only have that one project, they might not see some of these other, types of genres you work in or formats you work in. And, you just want them to get to know who you are.
Yeah. I love that you said that it was, defining who you are as a writer versus the, I think, awful question of like, well, what genre do you write? Because I'm like, I don't want to pigeonhole myself to one genre. Like, I'm going to write whatever genre is thrown at me. Like, if there's a job, I'm going to do my thing. I mean, obviously there's always, like you said, certain themes that you like are really attracted to. And I love that that's the question and not what genre do you write? I feel like that's such a pigeonhole situation. I mean, again, you can put down the different ones that you've had experience with, but
and it's important to know, like, when people throw things together, it definitely shows, and to put some effort into this, because your early bird deadline is coming up.
Yes.
April 15th.
My other question was, how in depth do you need to know like what your next seasons are going to be prior coming in? If it's like an anthology or if it's, a limited series, do you have does that need to be super well developed?
There's a place for you to check off that it's a multi-season, anthology, or limited series. So you can tell us that. And then the question about where do you see it for the first season and beyond, we're really looking for like 2 sentences. So we're looking for kind of that arc of the first season and then the general arc of where it's going. You don't have to know the detailed details at all.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes when you sell something or option something, like sometimes these companies do want to keep developing it with you, but it's important to remember when you have a pilot that this is just the first chapter of, multiple books. It's the opening to a much bigger project. And so you want to make sure that your pilot is setting yourself up for the journey that you're wanting your characters to go on and for the story that you want to tell. I think that's mostly what we're looking for, is like, when we finish reading this, what would you expect to come next as a writer? And I think for us, the best projects are when I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, you know what I really want to watch is the second episode of this. And then I remember, oh, wait, I didn't watch the first episode of it. I read the pilot script and I'm sitting there wanting the second episode. And that's when I know that it's a really good project.
So in that first round, I know you have other people reading it in the semifinalist and finalist level. In that first round, is it your board members who are reading it, or who are your readers for that?
Yeah, we have our selection committee made up of our alums from the Moonshot Pilot Accelerator and Moonshot Feature Accelerator. And so these are all people who, they're very talented. A lot of them are staffed. A lot of them are in development on their own projects. A lot of them have sold films to anywhere from Netflix to Lifetime and beyond. They're very seasoned writers. B, they know this program inside and out. They understand what it takes to be a fellow for the Accelerator. So these are all people 100% that I would trust to read and give me notes and feedback on my own projects. So we very much trust their opinions on this. And we go through, multiple rounds, and we're kind of, as I said, going back and forth with like the notes on the script, and also, that 2-minute pitch video, and later on the finalist interview. So we're trying to get like really well-rounded writers who are both fantastic writers and are, excited to be pitching, and we can always be training them on pitching, but someone who kind of naturally is up to that task, and we feel like we can get them there in 3 weeks to get to pitch week.
Do you, with picking the 6 to 8 fellows and the different scripts, do you take into consideration at all the different genres that you're bringing in, or like as a group? Or are you just like, we're just taking the best of like what we think? So if we get 8 comedies, that is what it is.
We are definitely taking into account the genres, because we tend to have half of them be more like half-hour comedies and half of them be hour-long dramas. And of course, there's some dramedies mixed in there, but we're trying to get essentially half and half, because we have development execs in the comedy space and in the drama space. And so what happens when we have all these execs is we send them a list of, here are, let's say, the 8 fellows with their 8 log lines and their 8 bios. And every exec who's on board has agreed to hear 3 pitches. So if I'm a comedy exec, I can essentially choose 3 out of the 4, comedy folks to hear pitches from. And sometimes there are surprises. Like we had Blumhouse hear pitches, and they didn't choose all drama. Like I was like, oh, they're only going to be horror and whatever. And they chose some comedies, so you never really know. But we want to make sure that these execs have a nice variety to choose from. We also like within kind of comedy and drama for there to be some, variety too. So we'll have like a period piece. We'll have a fantasy or a sci-fi. We'll have, all sorts of different things, so that it's a really well-rounded.
That's incredible. And I love that you said that the alums are a part of the selection process, because again, it's building community. If you don't get selected, you have an alum of this program who's working in this space, who has had your script in their hands.
Well, and
maybe you're not right this season, but they could still reach out to you and follow your career and see the next things that you develop too.
And they've been through the program too. So
exactly.
they know like what's going to be, like who I guess would be ready for the program, right? Like if you have someone who the script is great, but maybe there's something that they're not quite there, developmentally for whatever reason, they can kind of spot like who will get the most value from the program.
Definitely. Hopefully. And we have had people wanting to meet with writers whose scripts they read, not just at the semifinalist stage. Like we very much try to facilitate connections between those showrunners and high-level writers with the semifinalists whose projects that they're submitting. But even sometimes like earlier in the process, like one of these fellows in the selection committee might read something and want to connect with someone, which I think is really special. Like, we're trying to give people opportunities at every level, and we're advocating for people. Like, we've had someone that we weren't able to include who we had as a semifinalist, but we found out about an opportunity that might be good for them. I think it was like an exec who was looking for something, and we made that connection because we like want to keep helping all of these writers who are really talented. We obviously can't include every single person who's talented enough and ready, but I think it is important to say that like you do want to be accepted to something like this when you're ready. Like, you don't want to be accepted when you're not quite ready, because this is your first impression with a lot of these execs. And we do our best to like make sure that you're giving them an amazing impression. And in fact, the execs have told us that these pitches are often better quality than a lot of the just regular pitches that they're hearing in their day-to-day.
I believe it. I believe it because I've heard of too, just going back to the sense that, you know, they're betting on you as a writer personally, and the sense that they get from you, your work ethic, your personality, your passions. Yes, because the higher up you get, some, you know, people have deals and writers' contracts with the series not even noodled yet, to use your word, like not even thought of. It's just like, I buy into this person, whatever they're writing next, they're on retainer with me. And so it's, I believe it that these pitches are probably more fleshed out than a lot of the stuff that they're seeing. And it's so great that you make them so well prepared and you really think about everything.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the execs it's exciting that they do have a script that they're able to read for all of these pitches right away. So if they're interested in it, they can ask for the script then and there and read it that week if they want to.
Massive opportunity.
Yeah, it's a massive opportunity. Yeah, you're right. Within the 3 weeks, do they write an episode 2? Is that part of it, or it's generally the pilot that was submitted?
No, it's just the pilot that was submitted, and we actually don't have them editing their actual scripts during this program at all, because we feel that by the time they have gotten vetted, I mean, they've been read by 10, 12 people at that point by the time that they get accepted, including 2 industry members. And a lot of times the feedback is kind of conflicting between people. I was just sharing this on our social media, but like, we've had it where one of the industry judges said, this is my favorite script out of all of them. I'm obsessed with this. I want to meet with this writer. And the other industry judge who read it wanted to pass on the script. So you have, at this point, these writers are so talented that it's down to taste and opinions. And, we had at that point asked one of our board members who is a showrunner, like, how do we select between this script that has someone who's obsessed with it and gave it a favorite, but someone else gave it a pass, and then this other script where both people are like, I recommend this script. And she said, you have to go with the one that people have strong opinions about and are obsessed with, because that's what kind of cuts through the noise. And so we've taken that to heart of like really looking for what sticks with people, because it has to really stick with people.
Yeah, I think that's such important feedback, because I hear it a lot as an actor, but I haven't really heard it spoken about as a writer, that how subjective the selection process is for programs or for, script competitions can be. That happened to us as, our script got the highest, our feature got the highest marks by like a top level film festival reader. They were like, yes, this has marketability. There's passion. There's the why now. There's the why you. And then another festival like passed on. It wasn't even a finalist. And we were just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So it totally does come down to taste of the reader.
No, totally. I think that's
Absolutely.
really important too. And I like definitely commend. Again, it's a reminder, don't send in your script like if you need until it's ready. So even though it's open today, if you need a few more days to make those last minute edits, do all those things, like do that, because your script isn't going to be touched during the process. Yeah. But also it's just such an important reminder, like that you may get notes back from, these high execs as to like what their opinions are, but you as the artist, as the writer, need to differentiate what you think is like helpful to the story that you're trying to tell versus like just noise, or, you know, you're turning it into a direction that you don't necessarily want it to go in. And obviously you have to, again, differentiate between these execs who, do you want a job with them? Like, is making that sacrifice or that change something that will help you and like is meaningful, or is it completely quote unquote destroying or changing the story that you want to tell? And is that worth it for you? So I don't know. That's just really important to be able to like find your own voice, both, and standing your ground with the story that you're trying to tell, or, you know, if it's helpful, then go at it. Change away.
Yeah, Jessica,
when you get into
that's
those.
so great.
Yeah,
I have so many things to say to that. First of all, yeah, I think like going back to our last question, there's a reason that we don't have them, you know, editing and editing and editing during those 3 weeks, because they are so focused on pitching, and we don't want them to be kind of like in a tizzy trying to edit, making things potentially worse. Like, already they've gotten a sign off from industry judges. Like, they can feel very confident that when they're submitting their scripts to these development execs who want to read it, that they're at a high enough level that, you know, their script is good. And yeah, you never know what way these development execs might want to take the project. There was this one writer who we had her really up one part of her pitch a little bit, because we're like, oh, like, I feel like this character's arc is going to be more important to the season and series than what it felt like in the pilot. But, you know, so she upped that aspect of it. And then the development exec, when they read it, they might, who knows, they might want to keep upping that aspect, or they might want to go in a different direction. And yes, the writer would have to decide if like this is a good partner, if this is someone who shares their vision. And, you know, it's hard as writers who are like trying to get your first big break. You feel like you would have to take any note that any industry person gives you. But we have seen, you know, 2 different showrunners give completely different notes on a script. We have seen a showrunner versus a development exec versus speech coach give different feedback on a pitch. And we always prepare our fellows, like, you are going to hear contradictory advice during this from all of these guests we bring in, from each other. Between all of these sessions, we have them do pitch practice one-on-one with each other. So they're all trying to, that helps them just build those relationships even more. And they are all so familiar with each other's pitches by the end of this. We could probably say the pitches in our sleep by the end of this. But it's, you know, it's so helpful because we're also sitting in on all of the pitch week meetings in the background, camera off. But like, you know, you also never know when you pitch. It's really hard to sometimes get the development exec's vibe from it. So there was this one group of comedy writers who were pitching to this exec in the comedy space, and she didn't laugh at a single thing. And they were all freaked out that they had bombed it by the end. But we were like, no, she is just kind of like a little more, you know, straight faced and keeping her opinions to herself.
Isn't that what they say with SNL whenever everyone goes and auditions for SNL? Like, no one laughs in the room, and then they get it. Yeah. I feel like that's like, they'll go in and do their impressions for like 2 minutes, and they're like, the room never laughs. Like, maybe if you're like a Kristen Wiig, someone will laugh, but like no one laughs. And then, you know, you get it or you don't. But that's funny.
Intimidating.
Yes, right? So isn't that crazy?
We also had a writer who, in her first pitch of Pitch Week, I think she like blacked out during it. She started talking so fast. And at the end, she texted me. She's like, oh my God, I bombed that. They didn't ask me a single question. I was like, I was listening in. They asked you 5 very thoughtful questions, and you answered them very, very well. But like, it's something that can happen on your first pitch. And so we always now, that was the first year, we always now prepare people like, you're going to want to really speed up in your first pitch, or you're going to like maybe black out a little bit and not remember it. But you're not always the best judge of how you did in a pitch. Like, we had a fellow once tell us, that was my worst pitch. And we're like, actually, we thought it was your best pitch of the whole week. So, you know, you never know.
That's incredible that you guys are in on it on the back end. Like you said, muted, but that they're never going to get that experience out in the real world pitching. They're just going to be one-on-one. And if they leave feeling like they did great, or if they leave feeling like they're bombed, they're probably not going to know. So the fact that you are witnessing that and able to give them that feedback is incredible.
And we've learned so much. Like, I don't know if anyone else in a position like ours has had the opportunity. We've sat in on 230 some pitch meetings with all the biggest companies in the business.
Oh my gosh.
We're now able to prepare the fellows with things like, okay, you
already know what they ask for.
Right. We know the types of questions that come up, and we're able to give them a list of just general questions to be prepared for, which we also do, I think, in our how to pitch your project class. Like, we brought that into a class too, because we wanted to give that opportunity for learning to more people. But we give them a list of all of these questions that they should be prepared to answer. And, they get in there, and we always tell them, you are the number one expert on you as a writer and your show. So you're good. You're the number one expert.
Wow, I've learned so much. I'm not even a writer, and I'm so excited about this program. Pivoting from this program, do you have a biggest piece of advice in general for women writers right now?
I think you have to not wait for permission, and you have to greenlight yourself with things, because I remember coming out of college being, I don't know, in college, it's very much like, these are the opportunities. These are the classes you can do. These are the things that you can audition for. These are the opportunities to make what you want to make. And so you kind of go in with that, like, I have to follow a specific path, but you're not a doctor going to med school. There is no specific path that you have to follow. So I think if you have something that you're excited about or in an idea, like, just start working on it, because you're going to learn so much. I remember the first film I produced, we spent like $500 on it. And, I learned so much because I had never produced a film before. And I walked out of that knowing so much more than I did before that. So yes, I would say, say yes to yourself, because, like, why would you say no to yourself? And make what you want to make.
We're about like manifesting here. So one of our last few questions is always like, where do you see yourself in like either 5, 10, 15, whatever, so many years down the line, months down the line, whatever it is. And yeah, where do you see yourself, and also Moonshot, like, down the line? Like, what are your hopes and dreams for your career and for Moonshot?
That's such a great question. And I'm aware that, like, my dreams can change as time goes on. Yeah. But right now, I feel like we're really at this space where in our next step, we would love to find a way with Moonshot to be able to produce and greenlight more things, like, on our own, instead of just like making the connections, seeing where there's space beyond just our film challenge, making the short films. Like, how do we actually get people's projects made? Because sometimes with like the Pilot Accelerator, for example, like, we are obsessed with these projects, and then chances are, it might never get produced, and we never get to see it on screen. And we're wondering, where can we be that space for people? And we're like really working on a space of being greater visibility as an organization, and trying to get our name out there. I do a lot of speaking engagements and stuff like that. And we're trying to be more in the spaces that filmmakers are, like festivals and things like that. So I think even though we're a smaller grassroots organization, the programs that we do are already so much bigger than like the size of our organization. And we just need to kind of connect with that, larger community that might want to be part of this. I'm really also trying to get back into some of my own creative practice. I was working on a novel, and because that was kind of like my creative writing background was in, writing fiction. And I just want to get in a space where, both through Moonshot, helping other people get their projects out, and also giving myself more creative space to work on my own projects. I think having both of those in tandem is a really beautiful space to be.
Yes, we hope that for you 100%. And I noticed in your bio, you are a Jane Austen enthusiast. So we were just wondering if
what? I have to update. I do like Jane Austen. Tracy did write that bio for me. Like, she was just working on the website, and I was like, oh, this is like, that's interesting. I haven't read Jane Austen book in a while, but I have read most of them. I mean, you can see some of these like old Bronte.
You got a lot of books behind you. Yep.
Behind me. I do have a ton of
a
books
writer for sure.
in my space. Yeah, I read a ton. Sorry, what was your question about Jane Austen? And hopefully I can answer it because it's been many years.
Yeah, no, we interviewed the filmmakers for Jane Austen's period drama that were Oscar nominated for the short film
live action short film
this year. And so we were wondering if you've seen it or not, but it's up on YouTube. So we'll send it to you if not, because it is absolutely hilarious and incredible.
Oh, please send it to me. I would love to see that. Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, and that would be amazing to see. I just love everything that people are making. Like, I think that the more everyone leans into what they're just obsessed with, that's where the magic is. I found myself reading so many like time travel books, and now I'm writing one. I'm like, okay, I'm just interested in, not like super sciencey time travel, like the sort of whatever 13 going on 30, like what happens if you find yourself in this crazy new position. So
love it.
I'm, just trying to like follow what's exciting to me right now.
We love it. Well, everyone's going to follow Moonshot Initiative, of course. But if people want to connect with you, where can they follow you and connect with you?
My Instagram is at KATRINA MEDOFF. You can also find that, I think I've linked on the Moonshot Initiative Instagram page. And my website is katrinamedoff.com. That also might be out of date, like much like my bio that you read on the Moonshot website, but you can find me there.
Yeah, there are definitely ways to find you.
So we'll leave all that info in the show notes down below. And thank you so much.
Yeah, we'll have it linked so no one has to guess about it. It'll be linked below.
Yes. Thank you so much for coming on the Get Set podcast and speaking with us today. We're excited. We're so excited for everything that you all have in store. I also can't wait for you all to, move more into the producing side of things with like the bigger shows where it sounds super cool.
Thanks so much, Jessica and Monique.
Yeah, we're forever fans. We're always going to show up to your LA events. We're so grateful. We're so grateful. So yeah, no, really, thank you. And to all of our listeners, go
Get
Set.
The Get Set podcast is created, edited, and produced by Jessica Payne and Monique Schwaneman of Old Girls Entertainment. Original music composed by the incredibly talented Kyle Hall. You can follow him on his social media at Kyle Hall Music.
If you vibed with this episode and our mission of bringing to light different career paths within an industry, especially for women, subscribe, leave a review, and share us with a friend. Thanks, friend.